No, that's right. ZBZ. All right, here we go. Sorry about that, everyone. So we'll go ahead and get restarted here. Good afternoon or morning for those of us joining from the Mountain and Western time zones, and welcome to our conversation on career counseling in times of crisis. Thank you so much for joining us live, and for those of you viewing the recording, thank you as well. We look forward to hearing from you. My name is David Corsar, and I am the manager of career development programming here at the National Wildlife Federation. I am joined today by Tibisay Hernandez, Assistant Director of Employer Relations at the University of Albany, State University of New York. I wanted to point out that Albany was our top recruiter for student and faculty registrants at this year's EcoCareers Conference held in April. As one of our EcoCareers sponsor campuses, Albany represented 11% of the 1,100 students and educational advocates that registered for the conference this year, so go Great Danes. Tibisay is a two-time alumnus of SUNY. She has a Bachelor of Arts degree in English, a Master's in Curriculum Development and Instructional Technology, and is currently a doctoral candidate in the Education Theory and Practice program. In her role, she conducts and oversees the on-campus interview process. Although her work revolves heavily around employers, she is frequently used as a sounding board for University at Albany students. Tibisay also serves as an advisor to student organizations, is a sexual assault prevention trainer, and certified implicit bias trainer. She is dedicated to helping students believe in their potential and helping employers find their next employee. She has a special interest in issues of diversity and inclusion, in particular with first-generation college students. She is an hermana of Hermanidad de Sigma Iota Alpha Inc., but her favorite title is mom to her two children. Tibisay, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your insights and represent SUNY, especially considering all of the various roles and responsibilities that you're juggling.
David, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, NWF and SUNY Albany have coordinated on helping students learn about sustainability and prepare for green careers for years. Tibisay and I met virtually, of course, and discussed this event just about a month ago, but it's 2020, so that feels like years as well. But what we wanted to address today, as the title of the event explains, is how career services departments react and adapt to crises and shifts in society, in particular the COVID-19 pandemic. While early on in the pandemic, there was much talk about how and when we would return to quote unquote normal. Since then, higher education and the career services sector are now recognizing that we must instead prepare for the new normal. For our live participants, we absolutely encourage you to offer your own ideas, insights, and links to your programs and resources with us and with each other, and also to submit your questions for us to address. To keep things running smoothly, several of my colleagues, thank you, Amy, Kath, and Jennifer, will be monitoring the chat, addressing immediate questions for clarity, and collecting questions for Tibisay and myself to address in the second half of this conversation. So to kick things off, Tibisay, would you give us a quick overview of the pre-existing strategies and resources that University at Albany provides to its students and how your team reacted this semester as everything shifted over to virtual services only?
All right. So prior to COVID, we ran with traditional career models. We have the Handshake platform, which really houses all of our jobs, as well as internship and fellowship on-campus opportunities. It's where our employers can request on-campus recruitment opportunities like information sessions, interviews, anything basically that they need in order to recruit our students. We also utilize Handshake as a scheduling system for our coaches. So our career coaches, students could go onto Handshake and make appointments with them and then come into our office and meet with our coaches. So everything ran pretty much at a face-to-face level. We also had two large fairs, career fairs, one in the fall and one in the spring, as well as we ran a part-time fair that was a little bit smaller in August and September when the students start coming back. Programming looked like what you would think, going to different student organizations and doing workshops in the evening, sometimes doing workshops throughout the day. And we also have a very robust peer career advisor program where we had about 25 plus students that are peer career advisors that do drop-in resume critique appointments in our office. They are trained for an entire semester before, actually a year. So they're trained for an entire year pretty much, before they are able to be kind of on their own, as a peer career advisor. And again, everything was face to face. So once COVID hit, we were pretty good in terms of having the right platform at the right time. So Handshake really transitioned well into the virtual realm, the all virtual realm. We were able to still conduct appointments and do them via Zoom. We had our students email any resume or cover letter or anything that needed to be reviewed prior to the meeting so that the coach could pre-prepare. We also transitioned our peer career advisors to do resume critique appointments now, not drop-ins necessarily, but appointments online via Zoom as well. So it really transitioned in terms of services. We were lucky because COVID happened after our spring fair. So we were still able to conduct our spring fair that happened February 18th. So a lot of our larger programming, by the time that COVID hit, that we had been preparing for all year was done. We were just starting to get into our on-campus recruiting season. So I was just getting busy in scheduling employers to come onto campus and do their interviewing, and then everything stopped. So what happened with employers was that they were, they transitioned into that virtual space. So we were able to continue to schedule through Handshake, but now instead of coming into the office to do their interviews, there was a link that the student, clicked on during the time that they were scheduled to interview, and they spoke to the recruiters. We also started a lot more robustly, posting on social media. So we really try to leverage our social media as a learning and educational space, not just a marketing and promotional space. So we had just kind of messages, simple messages about, resume critiques, about who was actually hiring, who was still hiring. So uh, Handshake and other platforms were putting out these great lists of who was still hiring for internships for the summertime. So we were able to kind of push that through social media. And actually, we were still doing information sessions with employers. So we had information sessions that employers did in the evenings when students were kind of done with coursework, or that we hoped that they were done with coursework. And we started virtual site visits. So that was a completely new realm for us. So we have a program that we run called Great Danes in NYC, where we have students, because of a lot of our population comes from New York City. So we schedule site visits with companies all throughout New York City for a week in January while they're all on winter break. Um, and we had one that we had set up for spring break, and again COVID hit, and our team was just really innovative and said, you know what, we're going to reach out to the companies that were going to do it, and let's see if they could do a virtual site visit. And we've actually kept that model and continue to do virtual site visits beyond that week and just throughout the end of the semester. So a lot of newness. Definitely, there was a learning curve, but we jumped in. Everyone jumped in with both feet, and we were able to still seamlessly provide the services that we were providing while we were on campus in a virtual space.
That's fantastic. Are there any new tools or new strategies that you've already put into place? I know you're planning for the upcoming academic year at this point, but are there any new platforms or apps or anything that you've already rolled out, perhaps fast-tracked as a result of COVID-19?
Well, what's interesting is that because of COVID-19, Handshake, our job and internship platform, basically our hub of communication with our students, actually started developing a virtual fair space. So we are hoping to, utilize that space in the fall for our virtual fairs. And now we've also revamped and reimagined how we look at the career fair in general. So, like I mentioned to you, we had a large fair that happened in the fall. It usually was about 160 employers in our SEFQ arena. It was very large, and again, very face to face. And we didn't want and didn't think that that model would be conducive in a virtual space. So we broke it down to
Mm,
different industry specific virtual fairs that are going to happen throughout the course of about 2 weeks in the beginning of the semester. Now, all students will be able to participate in all of these fairs. They will just know that specific companies are registering in this industry. So if they're looking for a job in a specific industry, even if their major is not that, they can attend those fairs. So we stretched it out, we made it more intentional, made it smaller, so that way that engagement process could be better and more robust for our employers as well as our students.
excellent. How have your numbers been? Do you have a sense for how many interviews have been taking place now that they're virtual instead of face to face, and how many employers you're currently working with? I know that Handshake made a lot of the relationships fairly seamless, but did you see a drop off, especially in relation to the fact that a lot of employers have reduced their hiring as well?
So definitely we did see that there was a bit of a drop off in the beginning. The beginning weeks, especially with recruiters and companies not knowing what they were going to do with their internships. But what was really surprising and rewarding was that a lot of the partners that we work with in our institution decided to still move forward with their summer internship opportunities. Some shortened them, but they were still paying the student the same stipend that they had, promised them before. So we did see some drop off in terms of engagement on the platform in interviewing. What we were focused on was making sure that our students that had internships continue to have them. We, as a university, created an experiential learning and internship task force because, as you know, we're we're not the only ones that are getting information. So each college has their own internship coordinators and people who deal with that, so that are more specific to the majors. So we all came together as a coalition and we were reporting weekly when students were telling us that an internship was taken away from them, or if we got a letter saying that the internship was going to move forward. We created a master list and document and kept track of that. Our biggest goal during COVID was less about the interviewing and more about making sure that any senior that had an internship that they needed to fulfill to graduate got
Hmm.
that opportunity. So even new courses, different courses were created to give virtual experiential learning opportunities to students for credit, so that they could count that towards graduation. So we were really, really trying to push out there that, don't panic to the students, but especially our seniors that may have had an internship opportunity and now that goes away and they don't have the credits to graduate. That's ludicrous. So our goal was to make sure that we took care of our students that were graduating.
Yeah, that's fantastic. One question that came in that I want to jump to right now is, can you describe for us what that student employer engagement will look like in those virtual fairs? I think we can all
Mhm.
sort of imagine an interview process transitioning from, face-to-face to Zoom. But the dynamic of, walking up to a table and, getting a little bit of a spiel and deciding whether or not you want to continue the conversation. And this is a question that I think is that really caught my eye, because we do produce an annual virtual career fair. And every year we're always trying to up the realistic factor to make it feel more like an in-person conference. So what will that look like, and how can you kind of make that more exciting and more interactive for the students and the employers that are participating?
Well, I can definitely speak to some of the interaction. Like I mentioned to you, the Handshake platform is being built completely new. We know that there's going to be video capability, so that's wonderful. But we have also done virtual career fairs in the past. So through our SUNY Career Development Officers Association, we actually do, and I was the person that headed that up for the past 2 years. I just recently passed on the baton to a great colleague. So what it looks like in the spaces where we do virtual career fairs as it stands now, even pre-COVID, it's more of, if you think about chat rooms, it's more of a chat room situation where each employer has a chat room, and each chat room has the employer's name and a description of what it is that the employer is looking for. So that's completely tailored by the employer. And then the student can go into the chat room and almost type in their elevator speech. Like, hi, my name is such and such, and I'm a major in English, and I'm looking for opportunities with your company in these areas. Are there any opportunities available? And then the employer is able to chat and answer questions as they filter in, and as students filter in, they're able to engage. So some people are great at it because, they're millennials or Gen Zers, and we all grew up in chat rooms, which is phenomenal. So they could really multitask and get in there and get all those questions answered. Another thing that we have in that space is, I've actually been a career advisor. We have a career advisor room. So if you have questions about the companies that are there, you can actually jump into our room and ask us questions about, what some of these employers are looking for. So we act as almost like moderators. So if you have cold feet, or if you want to know how to, engage an employer, or how to approach a certain employer, you could jump into the chat with us, and it's right there, quick career advice. So there's that in terms of the virtual career fair space. Handshake, knowing that, wants to make it even more realistic, and that's why the video component is being added in. But again, I'm just waiting for them to kind of build everything out to see what it looks like. So we're going to be guinea pigs this fall to see what that looks like. In terms of interviewing, there's 2 types. So there is this platform where it's, you're logging in and you're speaking to a recruiter, and you're having that conversation. But then there's the other model where you are asked to pre-record your answers to questions. That is a skill set within itself. One of the platforms that we are actually using that I didn't mention before that is new for our institution is called Big Interview. And Big Interview helps the student learn how to do these pre-recorded type of questions. And what's great about Big Interview is that they have questions from all different types of industries. They have entry level. They also have a varied toughness level. So you can go from answering an easy question to a medium question, same kind of question, but just asked differently by the employer. So that way you can have a well-prepared answer. It also has an answer builder feature, which I think is really nice. So that way you can start as a student writing down those stories, or curating your answers to particular questions, and then save them in the platform so that you can prep before you even go into an interview. I'll tell you though, it's it's weird talking into nothingness. It is very strange
Yeah.
to not have somebody at least give you a smile or make you feel like you're answering, the right way. There's no visual cues when you do the pre-recorded. And depending on who you are, that could be great. If you're shyer and you just kind of want to get your answers out there, you don't want somebody to have their eyes on you, then that really works. But if you're an extrovert like I am and you feed off people's energy, it's really, really difficult. So it's something that we are preparing our students for. So our mock interview process as well. I've done a few mock interviews where instead of a traditional mock interview where I will get on here, David, I've sent an assignment through Big Interview to a student. And I've sent them 10 questions that I want them to pre-record for me. Then they send me, once the student completes it, I get notifications stating that they recorded all of their answers. I go into the platform and I can rate their, how they looked, how they sounded, their eye contact, their content. So I can give them a rating and then at the bottom, give them notes and feedback. By the time that I'm meeting with that student one-on-one, it is very pointed conversation of, okay, I gave you a 4.4 out of 5 in this question, but you got a 2.2 in this question. So this is a realm that you have to work on more. Oh, you don't have that answer to how to work with difficult team members, right? You don't have a good answer for that. Well, if you're a sophomore, next year in junior year, I want you to join committees. I want you to join student organizations. So that way you have more exposure to teams and can build stories. Because I really believe that interviewing is a storytelling process. So those are some of the things that students need to be aware of. Those two specific ones. One is that even if it's a Zoom interview, you still want to pre-prepare. But the pre-recorded ones, which a lot of the bigger companies use, are a little bit more intimidating and require the preparation of speaking into the ether and having no one respond back. And there are also time limits as well. So Big Interview also gives you the opportunity to modify how long a student can respond for. I'll tell you with the ones that I've seen, you get 2 minutes and you get 2 tries. 2 minutes, 2 tries to get it right.
Oof.
Extremely intimidating. But if you've been practicing and you've been building those answers, it's not going to seem rehearsed, even though it is rehearsed. So you got to rehearse.
And you said this was a platform, Big Interview, that you started using this semester. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the students that have gone through that?
I'll tell you that the feedback has been really great for me. I've spoken to our students, specific mentees of mine that I've used it with. I do the baseline, so I have them do the 10 questions. They're very entry level, and then I have them do it again about 2 weeks later, and you see the growth. You see the depth in the content. And I can tell you that first initial meeting with me, I play the video. Like I'll share my screen and they're like, oh, did I say that? What am I looking at? I'm like, exactly. Exactly. Because you don't want to look at yourself speak. You don't. So the feedback has been really great because the next time that they do it, they come back to me and the conversation is like, I know I killed it that time. Or I really paid attention to looking into the camera and not looking at my face. And it looks great. It looks great to me. Like I did well. And to see that confidence, this game of career is really a game of confidence. So I think that it's a wonderful platform because of that. It just shows, even in the numbers, right? In the numbers of how they score, it shows their growth.
That's awesome. And this is a platform that's new to me, but I'm definitely going to be integrating it into our online career center. And with that, I do want to go ahead and give a short plug for one of the National Wildlife Federation's newest resources to support career services departments across the country. NWF has a vibrant, virtual, and free community for students and young professionals called EcoLeaders. EcoLeaders provides a whole library of resources to help develop project design and management skills and leadership potential. Learn about projects that fellow students are implementing or have successfully implemented at other schools, and get started on mapping out their own personal career plans. The community was designed at its core with the student or young leader in mind. And while all of these tools and resources have been used by educators and other student advocates for years, we're in the process of creating several free toolkits designed specifically for those audiences to more easily access and integrate these resources into their classes and programs. So our first student advocate toolkit is the Career Services Toolkit, and this is primarily designed for career services departments, but I know teachers and professors are also key to helping students consider and form their career plan. So I think the toolkit could be useful for them as well. The toolkit starts with a facilitation guide, which is basically just an introduction to all of the other resources, which right now include a PowerPoint presentation that walks you through EcoLeaders and EcoCareers, the Career Center, our online conference, et cetera. A strategy worksheet full of prompts to help pull out the most important tools and resources for your office or department. An EcoCareers conference host guide with instructions for connecting your office and your students to our annual virtual Green Careers Conference, and ideas for enhancing the experience for your students. An academic year calendar with NWF and international sustainability events and ideas for connecting our career development resources to those events, as well as various customizable promotional resources and a link to our job listings forum. So I do encourage everyone that is viewing this to go ahead and check that out after this conversation. And before turning it back to Tibisay, I do want to invite everyone to continue adding their perspectives and submitting questions through YouTube's chat box. So Tibisay, I know that your expertise in particular is in employer engagement. How have employers changed their opportunities and their expectations, both in ability to hire, which I think you covered, and in the hiring process? I know the initial focus was on making sure that those with guaranteed internships maintain those internships. But what are you hearing from employers about moving forward and how comfortable they are with this quote unquote new normal?
Employers are actually reaching out to me and picking my brain on how they can better engage where the students are. So I've been having a lot of conversations with employers around, uh, you know, social media, this new virtual career fair space, all of that. So they're still out there and they are looking for great candidates. I think that having platforms like Handshake really helps because it's already almost like a social media type of platform. Um, because you can create your own profile. You create your own profile and you can get recruited through that profile. I think that LinkedIn is also another platform and space where definitely people are gravitating to. So, people are looking for talent in all of these spaces. I think that students need to be very aware and realistic about what industries are going to be hiring robustly. For example, the public health industry is an industry that's going to be booming right now, especially with, I know in New York State, they're doing a lot of trackers, a ton of information or positions have come out that are tracker positions. Also, thinking about the fact that there's going to be a lot of grant-based positions that are going to be coming out as well. So, uh, it might be an opportunity that's grant-based and says in 6 months to a year, it might not exist. And I would encourage students to still go out for positions that are like that. Still try to get any opportunity to build and refine those skills, especially if you're graduating now. The reality is that the amount of jobs is going to take a hit. I think we're going to know really how much of a hit it's going to take in these next couple of months as things start to reopen and things start to shift and change. We're all kind of in a holding pattern. Depending on what state we're in. I know that in New York State, we're in a holding pattern. As we reopen in phases, that really tells an employer, okay, if I can open up, for example, gyms or not-for-profit organizations that are doing camp, right? Stage 3 just opened up in New York State. So we saw this ability for, summer camp, leaders to start getting hired again. However, in our state, sleepaway camps were not approved. So anybody that relied on the sleepaway camp opportunity for the summer, they didn't have that. So there's going to be a reduction in the force. I know in business, the larger businesses, I know in accounting, because we have a lot of accounting firms, they're moving forward pretty much status quo, except that they're moving to remote models. But they're trying to make sure that the experiences that they're giving their students are still quality experiences, whether that be through their leadership opportunities that they have during the summer, like those 2-day, 3-day leadership opportunities, or whether it be through a full internship. The fact that they were able to still hire, a lot of companies were able to still hire and give full stipends, gives me hope. But we have to start thinking about redefining and reinventing our expectations. Okay, so it's about getting the opportunity. Yes, it's about utilizing your degree. Yes, but we have to also be realistic that you may not get a job that's going to be in your field of study. So thinking about that, what are other opportunities that are going to build your skill set so that when the economy finally rebounds, you have the skills and the opportunities, ready to go on that resume to pivot into your chosen career. And I tell students this all the time. People change jobs within the last 10 years. People have been changing jobs every 2 to 3 years and changing whole careers every 5 years. So it's about becoming a resilient job seeker. It's about knowing yourself, knowing what situations are you going to be okay being in. I'm not saying excited or like, hooray, but which situations are you going to be okay being in while this all gets sorted out? And then which situations do you not want at all? Because our employers right now, what they're looking for is the student that is taking this time, which is so hard. And I know it's a hard time, but the students that are taking this time to do an online free course that betters their Excel skills, or going on LinkedIn and doing some of the coursework that LinkedIn has available to sharpen maybe your Microsoft Office skills, right? Do a couple little certification courses throughout the summer just to make yourself more marketable. That's what's really going to stand out because, again, a lot of people have lost their jobs. So the market that you are going to be competing in is going to be a market that also has experienced workers. But here's the good thing. Sometimes people do not want experience because they want a new worker that they can build into the employee that they want. Okay. So you don't have to be intimidated by that. You just have to be resourceful, you know, and continue to look for opportunities that are going to sharpen your skills, not necessarily an opportunity that's going to be your job forever. Because as you know, David, there's not many of those that exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it really has changed the job of career services and career development to prepare young people for the reality that the average career trajectory is nonlinear and has those fits and starts and those jumps sideways and sometimes backwards, and that's the new normal, and it's something to be prepared for, and so that it doesn't knock you off your feet. And This actually ties into one of the questions that came in from Jody Talbot, and she asked, since many entry-level positions and internships require applicants to be current students or recent graduates, do you have any thoughts on delaying graduation right now for those that are about to graduate?
Honestly, that's a personal financial decision. I think you have to know if that's something that you can do, that's a conversation that you want to have with your family, your financial aid officer, your academic advisor. Where is that going to put you? That is not just simply a conversation of delaying to get an internship opportunity. It's more nuanced than that. So what I would suggest is really having that conversation, like I said, with if you're getting financial aid, because you might have tapped out of financial aid. So that might not be an option. But if you have that option and it's not going to hurt your academic program, it's a personal decision that you have to make. And now think about, what are you going to be doing during that time, right? So what does that look like? For some people, they might delay and they take a semester off and maybe come back, maybe work, or tack on a minor and do a minor, in whatever you're interested in. It can go so many different ways. I would never tell you that that's the solution. I think, again, you would want to consult with various stakeholders in your, life to make a well-informed decision about what that's going to look like for you. Because the last thing I would want is somebody to delay and then end up in a deep financial hole. That doesn't help you.
For sure. Another question that has come in is, what platform were you using this past spring for virtual engagements? Was it Handshake and Zoom and Big Interview, or were there others?
We were mostly using Handshake and Zoom. We also, for our SUNY CDO virtual fair, we use Career Echo. So they were our main platform, and that's who we've always used, Career Echo. Gail is wonderful. She just makes the process so seamless. I can't speak enough about her. And yeah, so those were the platforms. And honestly, what I'm going to start using is actually Instagram Live. So that's a piece of programming, and that I'm in talks with even for the fall, getting on Instagram Live and having a recruiter join me and having conversations and having students, send me their questions via Instagram Live, or, having a Twitter takeover, having an employer take over our Twitter and answering questions. I've even played with the idea of getting our office a TikTok and doing like 30-second TikTok advice, because I've seen other career offices do that too. So yeah, it's all up for grabs. I think that you can be really creative. We're a very small team, and my creativity sometimes is a lot larger than my team. So I'm always like, figure out your workload. But yeah, those are great spaces. Wherever your students are, that's where you want that virtual engagement.
Mm-hmm. So this would be a good TikTok response. So one of the questions is, what is the best way to list those courses, like you mentioned, the LinkedIn courses or a Microsoft Excel refresher course, or certificates on a resume? Where do you put that, and how do you not have that buried in a bulleted list at the very end of the resume, but not overshadow the other parts of the story that you want to tell?
There's tons of headings. Like if it is a certification, you can have a certification section where you can list those. You can list it as coursework, because it is coursework, or I would even say non-collegial coursework, so that they know that it's something that you did outside of your degree that you were doing during that time. And it doesn't have to be rocket science. It could also be under skills. Like just having those certifications under your skills. I have had students put their skills to the top, especially if they are in a field where they don't have a lot of experience because they haven't worked in that industry, but you have all these certifications that show that you can do the work. Put that right in the top. If you are a tech kid, right? I want to see those languages that you can code in right at the top. I want to see a link to any programs that you have done or any hacks that you've done in the top, right? So I think that the order really depends on what you want to highlight the most and thinking about what's most relevant, right? So it doesn't have to be experience first all the time. It really
Hmm.
doesn't. So coursework can be first, skills can be first. If your experience is not up to par, you can do a non-collegial work or course title. But there's tons of ways that you can list them. And honestly, you do a quick Google search and you can find so many different ways to list these opportunities. But yeah, I would definitely give them
Yeah.
their own space.
I think the idea of the one right way to do a resume is, thankfully, we're moving past that. I know that when I was first looking for professional jobs, I definitely was looking for, like, this is the way that it has to be. These are the exact words that you need to use. And I know that in some cases, like applying to a job on usajobs.gov, you do have to follow a
Hmm.
very specific guidelines. But
Yeah, the
for
feds are
many
a different
opportunities,
thing.
you have a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the feds are a completely different thing. They want you to write essays and paragraphs and different things. But yeah, I think that we have to start thinking about the resume as the back of your book, right? So if you read the back
Yeah.
of a book and it's really interesting to you, you'll read the rest of the book. So if the employer or the recruiter gets a very interesting resume, not interesting looking, because we still have very old school formatting things. So always talk to your career coaches about your industry and what that formal formatting looks like, what that formatting looks like for your industry. But yeah, you can switch things around. You can make things look less Times New Roman 12 point all the time. Like there's ways to do it. There's ways to do it.
So, in addition to reacting to the global pandemic, all across America right now, organizations, schools, businesses are currently reckoning with addressing systemic racism and discrimination. How is your office addressing social justice both internally and also externally with your interactions with potential employers?
I will tell you that it definitely has been a very difficult time for everyone involved. But we internally had very candid conversations about not only our professional experiences, but our personal experiences. And we were able to peel back a lot of layers on how intentional we've been in the past about addressing the lack of or the disproportionality that exists for students of color when they're going through recruitment processes. And we had very real conversations about the fact that we have to diversify our programming and we have to address those issues head on. We can no longer just be generalists because that doesn't serve our student population. They have various needs. And I would love to wave a magic wand and for racism and colorism to not be a thing tomorrow and that you are just judged on your skills and your qualities. But unfortunately, we know that bias is a very real thing. Uh, and we've had and started, I think that more employers are going to start having conversations about blind applications, redacting names, redacting addresses that could give bias, even redacting GPA and schools as well, and just looking at skill set, just putting a number on it, and then coding appropriately based on qualifications. So we also made a very conscious choice and decision to, uh, you know, speak out against discrimination on our social media. We were very honest and vocal about the fact that we are an educational space. So we utilized it to give context to what was going on in our world, because career development is human development. And I say that because I spend more time with the people in my office than I spend with my children and my husband. So when we're talking about career development and equity and having respect for each other, you're spending more hours with these people than you are your own family. You have to have that skill set. You have to be able to understand that people are different, and be accepting of people's differences. So on our social media, we, took a little break from the career, uh, typical career messaging, and just letting our students know, our student body know that we stand with them, that we see them, that we feel them. I did a couple social justice playlists as well. On I was doing a Quarantunes Friday playlist on our social media. So every Friday, I would put a playlist together of like quarantine related songs. It was very fun. But then when this happened, right, I transitioned that to a social justice playlist. Um, we've also now transitioned into workplace discrimination. So we are highlighting uh, different statistics on workplace discrimination on our social media. And then we're also highlighting policies and processes that companies are doing that reduce bias and discrimination. So we wanted to have, an awareness that this does exist, but also that it can be managed and reduced if you have the right people, with the right hearts, getting in the same room and saying, we have a problem, how can we address it? And that's something that's going to continue on into the fall. And I think that's going to be an underpinning of our office for years to come. Regionally, we've been having conversations about how do we vet employers? How do we ask them about their processes, their discrimination policies that they have in place? We're also trying to create materials to help students ask the right questions so that they can start vetting companies, right? During that interview process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very much, frontal lobe for us. And we are pushing everything that we can to make sure that this becomes a part of our culture, that we are social justice focused, because when we are social justice focused, then we can really impact the equity gaps that exist, right? Even as a woman, right? Asking questions about discrimination are important, and reporting and what that looks like. I mean, we've seen all the things that came out in the hashtag Me Too movement. So these are opportunities. These are opportunities
Mm-hmm.
for us to really give, uh, have pointed conversations with our students. So that way, when they go out into the workplace, they don't feel blindsided by all these things that are happening. How do you have a critical conversation or a difficult conversation? How do you speak truth to power? How do you recognize discrimination? And how do you address it in a professional manner? I think professionalism has been sanitized. The humanity has almost been taken out of work. And I think that this is forcing us to put that back, and put that back
Yeah.
in very real ways.
Yeah. I know that social justice advocates have pushed for years now for employers to list their income range that they're open to including, and that's been shown to help reduce those gaps, those between people of different races or sexes. And I'm curious, is that something that you reach out to your employers and discuss with when you're bringing opportunities to your students?
So we haven't done that in terms of the ranges, but New York State made it illegal for you to have to ask the question about salary. And that also helps to
Hmm.
close that gap. Because now if I tell you that my last job was 25,000 and you're only
Hmm.
you had 40,000 set aside for the job, well now you're going to lowball me and tell me, oh, "Okay, I'll
Yeah.
give it to you for 30 or 32." And hooray for you, right? That's statistically shown, right? When you don't negotiate
Yep.
salary and benefits, that also has been statistically shown to widen those equity gaps. So I think that also people in different states should get acquainted in their workplace discrimination laws. I think that as career professionals, we need to do a better job at that. We do, because
Hmm.
sometimes that's why I also feel like asking students how the interview process went after they're done with it is going to be very critical, because sometimes people ask questions that they're legally not supposed to ask, and our students
Yeah.
don't know. And one population that struggles with that a lot is our international students. Our international students don't know, and we are doing everything that we can in our office, and we have great resources in our office for international students to get them to understand what questions are illegal to ask in the interview. So we have to do a
Yeah.
better job at that.
We have just a couple minutes left. How can people reach out to you? What is your Instagram handle so they can catch those interviews with employers?
Sure. So we are at UAlbany Career. So you can follow us at UAlbany Career on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can find us at UAlbany Career and Professional Development. So just check us out. We're the only page that's UAlbany Career. So you can check us out there, as well as LinkedIn. So we have a LinkedIn page where I post a lot of information. So you can also follow us there. So yeah, definitely reach out to us, DM us if you see anything that's cool or repostable. Let us know. We love to share content.
Excellent. So with that, I just want to thank you for taking the time today to share your knowledge and ideas with our community. And also to thank all of the participants for logging in today, for submitting your questions. Feel free to reach out to myself as well. My contact information is courserd@nwf.org, or my team, which is ecoleaders@nwf.org. And I'll go ahead and also follow up with everyone that has registered through Eventbrite with information, resources, and ways to stay in contact and continue these really important conversations. So once again, Tibisay, thank you so much for spending time today with us.
And everyone can find me at thernandez@albany.edu. So if you have questions and you're not on social media, thernandez@albany.edu. And I would love to help and answer as best as I can. But thank you so much, David. This was a pleasure. I really appreciate your time.